Hi everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel and another paper crafting video tutorial. Today we're going to create some really fun domed shaker Christmas cards with new products from the Mama Elephant September 2024 release. We are going to be creating these shaker cards from craft cardstock and coloring our images. To start, I'm taking an 8.5 by 11 piece of Neenah 100-pound Desert Storm cardstock. This is the craft I like to use. And I've cut it in half lengthwise. So it's 4¼ by 11. And then at 5.5 inches, I'm using the scoring blade on my Spellbinders trimmer to score that. After we have our card base, I am going to take one of the Mama Elephant B2B Arches dies. I think this is the second or third largest. I think it's the second largest die. And I'm going to slightly hang it off the top of the scored part of the card to create this shaped card. Now this card is going to end up slightly smaller than A2 size, but that just means that with the shaker component, it's going to fit in the A2 envelope really easily. So we're going to do that for both of our card bases. Just going to repeat that here. And then we also need to get a few other prep pieces to get ready to do our background before we do any coloring. That's going to include die cutting this same die from the Neenah Desert Storm for the card front, and then using this die, and we're going to go down a couple sizes, tape those two domed arches together, and die cut those to create a frame. We're also going to use the same size larger arch die from the larger size to die cut 2 pieces of acetate. So we need a card base, a background, a piece of acetate, and the frame. Now on the background piece, we are going to take one of the new products from the release. This is called the Shimmer Lights Cover, and we're going to use this to create a decorative background. Look how good this looks. I'm kind of imagining that it's kind of this Christmas tree, large, like super-sized large Christmas tree in the background. And we're going to do this for both of our background pieces. It cuts out all of the little lights. That means if you put a contrasting color of cardstock back behind, or in this case, we're going to ink it, you're going to see that beautiful contrast show through the holes. So again, I'm just going to line this up and run it through. It's made to create the background, of course, but we're using it a little bit different today. Now I've laid out my greetings, my stamps for these 2 cards. We are using an assortment from many of the different new products from the September 2024 release. And we're going to set those aside now that I kind of have an idea of how everything is going to fit. And using a glass mat, I am going to go ahead and ink up these 2 background panels. I started with the craft cardstock for everything today so that it would be consistent all the way through. Everything from the card background to what we are coloring our images on. That way it's just consistent. Even when we stamp and emboss our greetings, which is the very last thing I do for my cards today, everything is on this craft. So we are inking up our background panels with Iced Spruce and Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide inks. And I'm using a really heavy hand, going in with the Iced Spruce first, and then we're going to go around the entire perimeter of the card with Rustic Wilderness. This is going to just give us a beautiful muted green background. Yes, this is going to be inside the shaker. Yes, there's going to be stuff on top of it, but I just feel like a good foundation is the best place to start always. And so that's what we're doing here. We're starting with our foundation and we're going to build up from that. And again, around the edges, we're going to go in with Rustic Wilderness. Now, once we are done with this, this is where we can have a little bit of fun with the distressing portion of the background, and that is going to be created with water from a distress sprayer and some white splatter from Spellbinders. I'm first going to spritz these two backgrounds with water from a distress sprayer, and then we are going to kind of blot that dry. And then in the same spatter box, I am going to place a little bit of the white splatter from Spellbinders, add just a couple of squirts of water to that to help it move a little bit better. And using a small paintbrush, I am going to just tap this generously all over these backgrounds. I want it to be very, very snowy. We're building these snowy trees, kind of imagining that they're in the background and super, super snowy. Now we can set these aside to completely dry while we stamp and color the images for our cards. I also want to add a quick layer of the Lumberjack Plaid Distress Oxide ink to the front cover of each of my card bases. You'll notice I'm not going quite all the way to the edge because I don't need to. The frame will cover that up. I just want the red to show through the holes there in these awesome background panels. So we're going to do this for both of the card bases. Then I'm going to get out my handy dandy Bright Room spinner from Target that I keep my Olo markers in, and we are going to color in our images. Now on those inside panels from die cutting the frames for a card, I had enough room to stamp all of the images that I need for today's scene cards, which is awesome. I can utilize all those little bits and pieces and they don't go to waste. I'm going to be using a combination of Olo markers, well, mostly Olo markers, but we're going to also use a little bit of white pencil to add in detail to anything that is white on our card. Starting with our snowman, I am going to build a base color with some blue-green markers. Now, why a white colored pencil? Because we're coloring on craft, anything that would traditionally be white or have some white tone to it, as snow would, is going to be craft colored. Well, I don't really want it to be craft colored. I don't mind it having that craft primitive undertone, but I for sure want it to be white, quote unquote white. So we're going to do all of our shading first, and then I'm going to go in with my white pencil and I'm going to generously and kind of lightly shade over mostly the center part of this. Colored pencils in general are fantastic to use with your markers, but I love this white pencil, and you can buy just a white pencil if you want to. It is fantastic for adding in that detail. It instantly transforms the snowman. Now, I don't know that it shows as much right now, but once we start adding in the rest of the color for these images, it really stands out that it's nice and white. And I love it. Now, don't worry about coloring over the eyes or the mouth. I did try to go around it a little bit, but I am going to go back in with a black jelly roll pen a little bit later and add that detail back in so it's nice and crisp. Let's go ahead and do the snowballs that the deer, and then the single big snowball that the deer is rolling, pardon me, and then the single snowball. Same thing with our blue-green markers. All of the markers I'm using today are listed and linked, or listed down in the description. There is a link to Olo. They're also listed over on my blog for easy reference. Definitely check that out if you're wondering about any of the color combinations. We're going to use some orange markers for the carrot nose, of course. He's starting to come to life, isn't he? And then I do want to try to keep my colors to a minimum today. And I felt like I really kind of succeeded. We have a lot of neutrals and then reds and greens. I wanted these to be very traditional Christmas color cards. So it's a lot of red and green. Obviously, we did those greens for our background. We're going to do some red embossing for our sentiments, things like that. Now that I'm adding the reds in next to the white, Look at how good he looks. When we get that hat colored, it's even better. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do the red over here. I keep my Olo markers end to end, which means that I have shading colors together. You can get connector rings for your Olo markers, and that makes it very easy to connect two shades together. And then I simply kind of keep my caps off of my markers as I'm coloring, so I'm not constantly drawing that. From the motion of pulling the cap off, it does draw the ink to the tip of the marker, and I don't want there to be too much ink. So if I'm coloring a bunch of small images like this, I will just leave the caps off so that I can just grab the marker and color, and then when I'm finished, I cap them all and put them away. We're going to color our deer next. I like to go with my dark color first and then blend out with a mid-tone and a light if needed. This snowman is adorable. And all of these critters are in the mama elephant look. And what I mean by that is that if you have any of the past mama elephant Christmas or critter stamp sets, you can easily mix and match some of these new ones with things that you may already own. I personally love when companies don't change everything every time there's a release, so that means you can go back and pull out a stamp set from 2-3 years ago or whenever, and you can pair it with these brand new ones, and it creates a seamless, very unique card design. I love that. Doing a little green here. I'm using yellow green, so it's a kind of what I would call a deeper green. It's not like a bright grassy pastel summery green or whatever that might be. I feel like this is a nice Christmas combo. Matches our background beautifully. And then we're going to take some cool grays and we're going to color in his top hat. I personally love the little squirrel that's hanging off the top of his top hat and the little birdie sitting on his stick arms. All of these things just add to the character of this little snowman. He is precious. So many cute images in the September 2024 release. Let me know down in the comments which sets are your favorite. It's really hard to pick. The snowman is probably my favorite because I am partial to snowmen. Just love snowmen everything. But there's a lot of really good ones. I like the little December duos as well. We're using the bears, but there's lots of cute, 3 other cute images in that. And then there's a set, the Nutcracker set, and I love the Nutcrackers in that set. See how he's come to life and now he really looks white? That is my favorite thing about this white pencil on the craft cardstock. We're going to use those same blue grays that we used for shading our snowman, but this time we're using them for our little bluebird. And we're not going to add any white to him so that he stays that nice little blue color. And then here's that black jelly roll pen. Now, usually I like to do this after I die cut, but I was so anxious to see what it looked like, I went in and added it. Look at how his face comes to life. So good. Now, definitely make sure you let that sit and completely dry before you die cut. Otherwise, it could smear as it goes through the rollers. That is one of the reasons I really like to wait till I'm done. I do let this completely sit and dry. Here, I'm just adding that white into the snowballs that the deer is rolling in that individual, so that those have that nice white hint to it as well. So we're going to color in the remaining 3 images, adding that dark color around our bear first. Now I did try to give my bears, they're the same color family, but the darkest color I use on the bear on the left, I'm not using on the bear on the right at all. I'm going to use just the mid-tone and the light, and that's going to give them a little bit of variety. I very briefly considered doing more of a polar bear and doing the white pencil, and I think that would be really cute. But ultimately I decided I thought that the browns might be a little showier. I don't know. White would have probably been really cute, but I love this as well. And again, we're just going to stick to the red color family. Now, the majority of these images actually are going on one of the cards. The December Duo bears, and then the little sign from the Sweets Little Agenda stamp set, the one with the gingerbread house. The little sign I just thought was a cute addition, so I pulled that from another set. Don't be afraid to mix and match. I am really mixing and matching from across the different sets to make it my own. I think I used 5 different stamp sets today, and I just pulled little parts and pieces. Other than the images, I pulled, little parts and pieces or sentiments from some of those other sets. So you may even have some things in your stash already. Maybe you want to just pick up, a new critter set, and you can use a lot of these same ideas with things that you already own. See how the two bears are slightly different in color? I love that. I'm taking the darker color for each then and just going in with a little dot detail to give a little more character to these bears. They're going to have a nice red scarf. I love that the red scarf is wrapped around the two of them. We will be adding some detail to some of the critters' accessories here at when we're done coloring and die cutting. That's one of my favorite things to do. I think it adds a lot of character to an image. So we're just going to go in with our darkest color and add a little R1.7 first, and then we're going to blend out with 1.5 and 0.5. And I think the red really makes them come to life. So cute. The Nina is really nice to color on as well. It's a 100-pound weight cardstock. I think it's really nice and smooth, and it really does give great results, as you can see. So let's go ahead and do the red for our little sign. And then I think we can put our red markers away. Oh, except for the scarf on our fox. And for the sign, there are probably sets from Mama Elephant that I could have found a little phrase to stamp on it, but I'm actually going to just embellish it with a little clay snowflake here at the end. I thought that would be kind of cute. I think a little heart might have been cute there too. We're almost done coloring. Lots of little areas on this. These are perfect images for everyone who loves to color. Do a little green here around our sign. And I think the rest of the sign is mostly going to be white. So here again is another example of where, like the snow sitting on top of the sign, we'll do the blue greens and then color over it with our white pencil. And the little stripes going down the sign pole will be in white pencil as well. I believe I'm using a Polychromos white pencil, but I'm linking the Prismacolor one. Either one are fantastic. I think I have both, and they're both really good. And that makes the image pop so nice. You can even use the white pencil to create highlights over your other colored images if you'd like. It's going to give you a little bit more subtle highlight than the white Jelly Roll pen. Let's color in our fox and then use the coordinating dies for these 3 stamp sets that these images are pulled from to die cut everything so that we can start putting together our shaker cards. If you prefer not to do shaker cards, you can always eliminate that step and simply either pop up the frame. You could still use the acetate if you want to stamp on it like I'm doing here today, or you could stamp the additional greetings on another piece of cardstock and die cut into a sentiment strip to attach to the card. So there's other options for those who maybe don't want to do shakers. Shakers are always such a fun and easy way to finish up a card. Here I'm taking that black Jelly Roll pen, adding the detail into eyes, noses. It really makes the critters come to life. We're also going to take a white pen and draw in stripe detail for scarves, highlights, polka dots for one of the sweaters, and then I even did like a little heart design on the scarf that's wrapping up the 2 bears. We'll do a few highlights just here and there. I didn't go too crazy with them today, but I do love how they just seem to brighten up the images. Our little fox has a polka dot sweater. We're also going to do a little highlight here on the sign pole, on the snow. And then this is for the hearts. I'm really just kind of drawing a little V, but I think it ends up looking like little hearts. I think this would also be a adorable image for Valentine's. If you have, for Mama Elephant, they have the heart pockets. I think any of the critters from this December duo set would be really cute for Valentine's as well. It just made me think of that, not when I was doing this, but just now when I'm doing the voiceover for the video. I love how these little hearts turned out on the scarf. Maybe one of my favorite things. Okay, to build the shakers, we first need to glue the background panel to our actual card base. So we're going to take the green portion and we're going to put glue in between each of the die cut borders and then place it right on the background. To make sure that all the little pieces are popped out, I did take the Spellbinders Tool-in-One and I rolled it over the back to help pop them out, or use the piercing tool to pop out any stubborn little circles. Oh, look at the red popping through. That looks so good. We're going to go ahead and do this on the other one. I'm just using that Tool-in-One. You can see all of the little circles just flying everywhere. They were literally everywhere when I was done with this. And then again, just glue this right to our other card front. Before we add any foam, we need to first stamp anything so that we can stamp it while it's flat to get the best impression. Laying out my images and my card background as well as the acetate panel, I am going to line up my first greeting for the Snowman scene card. This is a sentiment from that same Build a Snowman stamp set. And I am going to stamp my greeting right on the acetate panel with some cotton white StazOn ink. I love how the white looks on acetate windows like this. Oh, it looks good. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and take our second background, and for this one we're using a different greeting. This time we're going to use a huge sparkle and shine greeting on the upper part of the card. Because of this, we are going to use a smaller sentiment down from that December Duo set down along the bottom. And this reads, handmade just for you. Once I have that lined up, I'm going to go ahead and stamp that right down in the corner. It's always good to use your frame and any elements you're going to use as guidelines for where to place things. Then we're going to run some liquid glue around the outer edge of the frame and place our acetate right on the back. We're going to do this for both of the front cover panels. I like to make sure and do this early enough that the glue can start to dry because the acetate has a tendency to want to slide around instead of stay in place. So I will put the glue down. Sometimes I'll put something like an acrylic block or my Misty on top to hold it nice and flat. Now, sometimes I like to put my images inside a shaker, but I often like to put them on the front cover so that they don't get covered up with all of the shaker bits and bobs. In this case, we're going to build our scenes on the front of each shaker cover. Along the bottom edge, we're going to just build our little scene and glue everything down in place right to the acetate. I haven't added the foam yet. We're just simply building our scenes. Look how cute. So you can see, even if you wanted to attach everything just like it is now and attach it flat, it would be absolutely adorable. On the back, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to place foam not only just around the entire perimeter of the frame, but also back behind my images. This will give them just a little bit more stability and make everything look really nice on the shaker. Then we're going to build our foam all the way around. And what I like to do anytime I have a curved edge is to take the backing paper off so I can really curve it. I started with the straight areas and then I would pull the backing off and kind of finished with the top of my card design, as you can see. And then we're just going to fit this one around. It almost fit. I had to cut off like the teeniest tiny bit, maybe 1/8 of an inch. Okay, now I'm just going to remove the backing paper. Actually, let's fill it first. I have an assortment of products to fill. I think these are some vanilla sugar, clay heart, or clay snowflakes, pardon me. And then I have this wonderful celebration shaker mix from Pretty Pink Posh. Then I'm going to remove the backing paper and place our card base, where we have the shimmer cover on already, directly to this. So I want to make sure all the foam backing is off. Then we're just going to simply replace the backing of our card. Make sure and press all the way around the perimeter, shake it, turn it over and shake it up. So fun. Now I did notice that I saw a little bit of acetate there, so I'm just going to snip and clean that up. So stinking cute. I love it. Let's go ahead and do the other one exactly the same way, starting with our images. Now I will say I made one slight blunder. I was able to fix it. I shouldn't have glued the bears' heads all the way down because the greeting I'm placing is super big. I am able to kind of lightly lift it up, but just in case you're wondering, the liquid glue does secure to our acetate eventually, and it is a nice strong bond. So I've already attached and filled this shaker. I added a little snowflake to the sign, and we're ready for our sentiments. I'm taking the Sparkle and Shine and Fa La La, and we're going to stamp both of these on the Nina Desert Storm cardstock, just like before. I'm prepping it with a powder tool first, and I'm going to ink it up with some clear embossing ink. It's important to make sure that you get a really good stamped impression here so that there's a good surface area for your embossing powder to stick to. I stamped these multiple times, like maybe even 3 or 4 times, just to make sure that it was fully covered. And then I am sprinkling on my favorite red embossing powder from Hero Arts. This to me is the perfect red color. It's very red. Now, when you heat it on the craft cardstock, it's going to give you more of a primitive red look. On white, it is very, very red. I love this so much. So I'm going to make sure the coverage is good. Then we're going to take our heat tool and heat this up until it's melted and nice and glossy. And then we're going to use the coordinating dies for both of these sentiments, die cut them and add them to the front covers of our cards. Now, the great thing about both of these sentiments is that the dies cut very close around the greetings. And to me, that makes all of the difference in the world. I think we've talked about this a lot this month here on my channel, just about how dies that cut close to text especially, but all images really make a huge difference on a card. And I think companies are getting better and better with that. So here's the little fa la 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 that goes on our snowman card. I love that little added touch of color and interest. Now there's not quite as much going on at the top of this card, and that's relevant here in a minute because we are going to finish it off with a little something else. Now for the sparkle and shine, this sentiment is huge. Mama Elephant has done quite a few of these large scripty greetings like this over the years, and I love all of them. So this is a fabulous one, and it does take up a lot of room and it makes a big impact. And here is when I realized, I maybe made a slight technical error gluing that down. So I'm going to carefully peel his little head up and tuck that down underneath. We'll also tuck a couple of the areas underneath the edge of the frame, but most of it will sit on top. Just putting a little glue back behind here. Try not to make too much of a gluey mess. And then we're just going to tuck this down inside. I'll add a little extra glue underneath the bear's head to secure that in a minute. And I'm just very carefully using like my poke and pierce tool to tuck little bits and pieces underneath. Maybe not there. At first I thought that was going to work, and then I was like, no. I'm going to put these acrylic blocks on top to hold it nice and flat. And remember on the Fa La La, the snowman card, I said the top of the card was missing a little something because it doesn't have as much going on. I'm going to take these leafy vines from the Holly and Leaves set and stamp them with iced spruce and rustic wilderness and die cut them with the coordinating dies. I did 2 of these. I considered adding them to the Sparkle and Shine card, but when I just held it up to it, it didn't feel like it went. It felt like I was trying to stick it on there and it didn't need it. I love how it kind of frames up the top of this domed arch. We're just going to let it go around the curve. Look how perfect that is. Now, even though I love this, I definitely feel like it needs some red berries, don't you? So we're going to take some ruby red berries from Pretty Pink Posh, add these to the little branches like so, doing an assortment of the small and the medium. And we're really going to fill in our berry branch with these little touches of red, and that is going to finish off our card perfectly, I think. I did put all of these into a Simon Says Stamp triangle tray, and I'm using the embellishment wand to easily pick them up and pop them in place. And I feel like these branches are perfectly made for embellishments. Gemstones, pearls, all of the things. So, so good. And then you simply are going to shake up your cards. Look how awesome they turned out. I love them so much. Thank you so much for joining me today for these 2 holiday shaker cards featuring Mama Elephant stamps and dies. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for joining me today for another paper crafting tutorial. I love being able to share with this incredible community of crafters. I want to give a huge shout out and special thank you to my amazing Patreon members. If you're interested in joining Patreon, please click the link in the description underneath the video here on YouTube. Patreon is a private community where you can support more of what I do. There is exclusive content, information, and behind-the-scenes content. Top-tier members will receive a handmade birthday card during your birthday month, access to D-Stash, and monthly exclusive lives, plus so much more. We would love to have you join our growing community. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel, click that like button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new video. Thanks for watching!